is certain. Only music can help you to find the right way. The way you should follow today. This way will take you to the best genres of music from around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
It's not that I don't want you here. Yeah. It's something about the way you stare into my eyes. I know that I don't make things clear. No. I fall for you every time I try to resist you. We can get away. Palm trees, beach views, ordinary day. All I wanna hear is in the visions on replay. Sit right next to you. I try not to show how I feel about you. Think you wish you away, but we don't really want to. I just wanna get away and sit right next to you. I don't wanna kiss you. Yeah, I just wanna feel you. Feel you. I want you around. I
That day I'll always remember. Yes, I will. 'Cause that was the day that my daddy died. I never got a chance to see him. Never heard nothing but bad things about him. Mama, I'm depending on you. Tell me the truth. Mama just hung her head and said, son, Papa was a rolling stone. Wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died, all he left us was alone. Papa was a rolling stone, my son, yeah. Wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died, all he left us was alone. Hey, Mama, is it true what you say that Papa never worked a day in his life?
And Mama, some bad talk going around town saying that Papa had 3 outside children and another wife. And that ain't right.
Heard some talk about Papa doing some storefront preaching, talking about saving souls and all the time leeching, dealing in that and stealing in the name of the Lord. Mama just went ahead and said, Papa was a rolling stone, my son. Wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died, all he left was alone. Hey, Papa was a rolling stone. That garment, wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died, all he left us was alone.
Hey mama, I heard Papa call himself a jack of all trades. Tell me, is that what sent Papa to an early grave? Folks say Papa would beg, borrow, steal to pay his bills.
Hey, Mama, folks say Papa never was much on thinking. Spent most of his time chasing women and drinking.
Mama, I'm depending on you to tell me the truth.
Mama looked up with a tear in her eye and said, son,
Papa was a rolling stone.
Well, 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 well.
Wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died,
All he left us was alone, lone, 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 lone.
Papa was a rolling stone. Wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died,
All he left us was alone.
and Mrs. Jones, we got a thing going on. We both know that it's wrong, but it's much too strong to let it go now. We meet every day at the same cafe, 6:30, and no one knows she'll be there. Holding hands, making all kinds of plans, while the jukebox plays a favorite song. Me and Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones, we got a thing going on. We both know that it's wrong, but it's much too strong to let it go now. We gotta be extra careful that we don't build our hopes up too high, 'cause she's got her own obligations, and so do I. Me and Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones, we got a thing going on. We both know that it's wrong, but it's much too strong to let it go now. Well, it's time for us to believe. It hurts so much inside. Now she'll go her way and I'll go mine. Tomorrow we'll meet the same place, the same time. Me and Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones, got a thing going on. We gotta be extra careful. We can't afford to build our hopes up too high.
One of the lead defendants in the Pan-Africanism case, which involved folks like Asada Shakur, which is Tupac's mother, of course, Jamal Joseph, and a number of other folks. We'll get into it in a second. 21 cases. That case was beat and thrown out, and about 6 days later, was framed again in a case in which he served 19 years. And through the work of his lawyers, they were forced to release him because they found out that the FBI had pulled a fake move on the whole thing. So he did 19 years before he was able to stand up, give our good brother, the Hoover Grandma, a round of applause. What we're going to do here today is we're going to do something unique. Instead of just having the Hoover come in and do a lecture, and we sit back and listen, what we're going to do is part of the reason why Zahra asked us about if you had any questions that you want to answer. We're going to actually do an interview live in front of you. And then after we finish this interview, we're going to open it up for a Q&A so you can get more clarity. Y'all cool with that? Everybody good? Okay. What we would like to do, our attempt today, is sometimes we forums and you just hear a bunch of jibber jabber, you know what I'm saying? People just talking about a bunch of stuff. You get entertained, you go home without a plan of action. What we like to do is provide plans of action. The Hoovers also are advisors as far as the FTP movement, you know, so he's one of us so that we kind of stay on task with what we're doing. You know, we bug out sometimes as a people. But what we like to do is I'm going to ask him a series of questions. I guess the interview might last from anywhere from a half hour, somewhere around there, whatever. Half hour, 45 minutes, depending on how y'all get bored. And then we'll open it up. Everybody cool? Yeah. All right. How you feeling, brother?
Peace.
What we like to do, they before you got here, the sister was running off, like what she knew of Asada, you know, the case, you know, and just the basics of what was going on. So what we want to do is we want to allow the people the opportunity to get a better picture of who she is, what her purpose was, and why the situation is the way it is right now. Okay, so first question I want to ask is, who is Asada Shakur, and when's the first time, you know, you made contact with her?
Well, I mean, first of all, let me say that it's a pleasure and in many ways an honor to be here with young. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with young Black folks and who have some consciousness, who can take time out on a Sunday to come and try to update and upgrade information about relevant things. So I'm very honored to have been able to be invited to this and come over and talk to you and listen to your questions. Now, I know a lot of you are very young, few exceptions, and to fully appreciate who Asada was, we have to try to understand the time that she lived in, the time that is applicable. You know, we have to be conscious of where, when, and how, the environment, how things occur and when occur, because history changes. It repeats itself, but it doesn't repeat itself literally. It repeats itself in a spiral. And Asada Shakur was like probably most of you sisters here now. She was attending school at City College in the late 70s when there was a great upheaval of Black consciousness. City College was a hotbed of Black militancy. Professor Jeffries was teaching. Professor Smalls was up on the campus. We had Yusuf Benjamin, who was doing, like, we could see what type of environment it was, right? These are all these great historians that you've read about. I mean, they was alive and kicking up at City College then. So imagine that being your history class and you're constantly involved in these different struggles that were going on back and forth. So this was the environment that Asada was in, going across the street up in the Harlem Heights from City College. Okay? And she was majoring or trying to go into the medical profession. So her majors were in that area. And we got interested in the Black Panther Party, and we went up to City College, I did, on a couple of occasions to talk to students, just like I'm sitting here talking to you. And she was motivated enough to come down to the Harlem office on 7th Avenue to check out the party. So she rode down with her little white hot pants on and a halter top and a little big old afro on a little bicycle, rode all the way down to the Harlem office, parked in front of the Harlem office, and as everyone knows, Asada's a good-looking sister. So that caused a little stir with the brothers in the office. Everybody wanted to help her recruit her, you know. So the sister came to the office, and she got involved with the community political education classes. We were having classes every week, and she started coming to classes and started volunteering to do work. And then we formed a chapter, an NCCA, National Committee to Combat Fascism chapter, up in Washington Heights, where she lived. And she became part of that chapter up in Washington Heights with Isla Mason, Irving Mason, Frank Fields, who was killed by the FBI terrorist task force in Florida, Twyman Myers, who was killed by the FBI task force in the South Bronx, Anthony White, who was killed by the FBI task force in Brooklyn. All of these folks were in her chapter, the NC. Are you with me? So she became part of the medical cadre. In other words, the medical cadre then was dealing with health clinics. Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Cadre of the NCCF and of the Black Panther Party dealt with our free health programs in the community, where we would set up a clinic. People would come in for sickle cell testing, or we would try to get volunteers from the hospitals, mainly conscious Black doctors who volunteered to come into the community, do free do referrals, to do, you know, minimal invasive treatments, stuff like this. So Asada got involved in that end of the party. That's how she got involved, as a medical cadre, okay? And unfortunately, this was right on the cusp of the split in the Black Panther Party. COINTELPRO had worked so hard to divide the East Coast from the West Coast of the Black Panther Party that it was becoming apparent that there were these tensions between the two, the New York chapter and the East Coast region and the Central Committee in the West Coast. And so myself and Setoreo Tabor and some other brothers and sisters increasingly turned towards our own cadres that we have been training and developing. And Asada was one of them. So Asada became part and parcel of the infrastructure as the split developed at the Black Army. She was a medical cadre in the Black Liberation Army. That's how she started out. She was running medical safe houses. In other words, we had a little staff after hours. You know, if we had a bullet, you know, in New York and most places, if there's to the police, as soon as you do an emergency, they'll call the police because they have a bullet wound. Okay? And so, of course, you know, BLA members were getting wounded, and they weren't getting wounded in car accidents, they were getting bullet wounds. Okay, and so one of the ways we would treat them is we had underground clinics with all of the necessary first aid stuff to be able to remove bullets. But if there was really serious, we would have to get them into a hospital. And that's where Asada came in, because we had excellent contacts with doctors in Harlem Hospital, in Montefiore Hospital, in Lincoln Hospital. So we could bring in person through the back, get them treated and take them out through the back door without ever getting reported. And this is what Asada excelled at that time. And a number of brothers owe their lives to her. And you may not know them. Some of them have passed away, and some of them are still alive. So that's what Asada's role was, okay? I think, to sum it up, basically, Asada became a revolutionary before she became a Black feminist, if you follow what I'm saying. Because we have a lot of Black feminists now who are saying that feminism should support Asada Shakur because she's being oppressed and she's being persecuted as a woman by this big bad bully United States government. Asada is being oppressed and repressed as a revolutionary, first and foremost. As a revolutionary Pan-African woman, first and foremost, that she stands for the liberation and the emancipation of women, and black women in particular, is self-evident. I mean, Asada were shooters in the Black Panther Party. Women tend to be better shooters than men. Don't ask me why, but they do. Once they get the training, there's something that kicks in where they're pretty good. And Asada was good. And so this type of training that we were able to give her added to her compassionate feeling for saving lives, for being involved on that level. I hope you follow what I'm saying. We were at war. We were at war, and the enemy was waging war on us. They were trying to kill us. Do you understand where I'm coming from? And so when the Asada pulled over on the New Jersey turnpike, racist New Jersey, and back then, you know, driving down on the 95 on the turnpike, you will get stopped as a black person. It was driving while black as usual, but more extreme back then. And the New Jersey troopers had a reputation for this. We all know that. And so when Zayd and Sundiata and Asada was stopped on the New Jersey turnpike, you have to understand that they were all. So what would you think if Jersey steals you over and you get a folks and a person that looks like the most wanted woman in the Northeast, Asada Shakur, who they done blamed on for every armed robbery, every assault on policemen, you know, that occurred in the whole region. Like she could be 3 places at one time. This is how fantastic it got. So what would you think happened when they stepped out the car? What would you do if a state trooper pulled you over and called for backup and you stepped out the car and you was wanted in 48 states? What would you do? So all this Dennison had her hands up and she was shot, and all of that well may be true, but the fact of the matter, we were at war, and if the police got shot in the confrontation, it is to be expected. Therefore, our support for Asada is not based on a guilt or innocence. It's based on our rights and our right to national liberation and our right to self-determination and our right to resist racist attack. That's what the support Asada and for all of the political prisoners really, really means. You don't support them individually, you support the movement of which they became a part of and what they stand for. So the innocent is irrelevant. Yeah, I feel sorry for the families of the dead cops and all of that stuff, but we got families too. And we suffered too. And there has been no reconciliation and no retribution on those who violated our rights and murdered us in cold blood. So I just want to say that when you think of Asada and you think of what happened on that New Jersey turnpike, don't think in terms of her being a victim. She was a revolutionary. A revolutionary is never a victim. Victims are people who don't make conscious of, victimized by a system and taken advantage of. A revolutionary is one who takes on the challenges of power, takes on the challenges of disempowerment and tries to change the system. And the system then deals out the injustice and the repression that it's supposed to deal out to those who oppose it. So she's no victim. There's no Scottsboro Boys mentality here. None of those political prisoners in jail are in jail by coincidence. They're in jail by choice. So I just want to put that out there as who Asada is and what she really stands for.
Cool. What I want to do too, what I would like you to touch on, because I think that oftentimes we take for granted that folks understand what's what. For instance, COINTELPRO. As you know, you see a lot of folks online throw the word around for anything. Oh, that's COINTELPRO. Oh, it's that. That's this. And they truly don't understand what it is they're saying and what it is they're talking about. Can you give us a brief touch on what COINTELPRO is? And from COINTELPRO, maybe go into nuke kill and chest rob as well.
Sure. First of all, I want to ask a question. How many people here think that Asada Shakur was a COINTELPRO target? That Asada Shakur was a COINTELPRO target? How many people here think? Okay. Well, Asada was never a COINTELPRO target. I just told you how she joined the Black Panther Party and when she joined. The targeting of the COINTELPRO targets are in the documents of the FBI. She developed a file, as everybody did. Like everybody in this room, for instance, if I came and spoke to you and there was FBI informant in this room, right? And you raised your hand, excuse me, sister, what's your name? You said, my name is Monifa, right? They would open the file Monifa, and I give you a number and everything. And it would be just Monifa, phonetic Monifa. And then they'll try to find out who Monifa actually is. What's her real name? You follow what I'm saying? So Asada got into the files that way, but she never a target. A target is someone who's identified and put in the Bananas photo album, who's listed in the on the agitated index, and is also listed in the FBI files as a major leader or person that's neutralized. That's a target of the counterintelligence program. Okay? Now the counterintelligence program, as we all may understand it, has been kind of taken out of context. People use it as a generic term for repression of the black movement. In some sense, that's sensible. But it's not true, it's not accurate, okay? At the height of the counterintelligence program against the black community, between 1968 and its discovery, between 66 and its discovery in 69, 70, 85% of all of the COINTELPRO operations aimed at the black community were aimed at the Black Panther Party. Martin Luther King was a target, the SCLC was a target. All of these major organizations were targets to the counterintelligence program. But as the 60s began to wane towards the early 70s, by 69, 70, 85% was at the Black Panther Party. Okay? Now, counterintelligence program COINTELPRO stands for counterintelligence program. It was first initiated under that acronym against the Communist Party USA. Okay? The Communist Party USA was a long-standing organization we may be familiar with from reading Du Bois, from reading Marcus Garvey, from reading Paul Robeson, who are all members, not Marcus, but Robeson and Du Bois and Padmore. They were all members at one time or other of the Communist Party USA. The Communist Party USA was a very the Communist Party in Moscow. It followed the mass line and the dictates of the Revolutionary Party in Moscow, which was a Eurocentric revolutionary process. The First World War, a big old history class about where we were at the end of World War I and why Marcus Garvey was talking about Africa and imperialism. All of this is happening right as I'm talking to you about the initiation of COINTELPRO, okay? So keep that in the back of your mind, because some of you may or may have some historical understanding of this movement, and some may have a little less. But I just want to keep it moving. So what I'm saying is, at this particular time, the Communist Party USA in America was considered a threat by the U.S. government because it was considered the agent. Do you follow me? Okay? Now, during World War II, this wasn't much of a problem because the Soviet Union was on the side of the United States against the Nazis and against Japan. So it wasn't much of a problem. But at the end of the war, with the U.S. dropping the atom bomb Japan, Tokyo, the Communist Party then became a hotbed of spies, and we know about McCarthyism and about Paul Robeson, and we know about Jackie Robinson denouncing Martin Luther King, and we know about all of this, right? This is the Communist Party USA. It was led by a white man and a black man who looked white. And now don't get me wrong, the Communist Party USA support the country. They help build in this country. They were major advocates of small boys, segregation in the South. The Communist Party USA was a progressive organization. I want you to understand this, because but they suffered from some of the residual effects of white supremacy.
Like, damn, how it's lagging and shit. That was like a 15-second lag, gang. Shout out to all the American Aborigines. Hope everybody's doing well. What's up, gang? You got 48 people in the building, 47. I see y'all in the building. Shout out to Copper Color Jazz in the building. Original Copper Empress is in the building. Yanita Ya is in the building. Real Recognized Real is in the building. Who else? Mother of Dragons, Not a Coincidence. A.V. Elizabeth Young. Juan Torres. Darius Matthews. Dead D. My sister Chickahominy Roots. OG Roger W is in the building. Ern Jordan is in the building. What's up with y'all? Y'all Gucci. Top of the morning, balance of the evening. Rashard TSL. Ern Jordan. Samantha White. The realest N-word alive. Jared White. Jen Marte, RP Fan, LLC. Keith Lamont in the building. What's up, gang? Copper Color Jazz, you can have a wrench, but only under the agreement that you are now officially the Ghost of Aboriginal TV mod, which comes with responsibilities. One of those responsibilities is to post any of the endeavors that we have going on. You can always get those from the other mods, as well as when you out and about in your social media route, you got to represent for the tribe. You know what I'm saying? So if you can agree to those standards, then of course you can have a mod. All you gotta do is put 3 TVs in the chat to say you agree. And that's your electronic signature, ma'am. I just want you to know that. All right, let's. Let me give y'all a little bit of that trizzy.
Infamous Trail Lee. Triple D Texas, bro. You ain't scared about the shit you be talking about? Fuck out that talking, I'm with it. Talk about business. Big bitch just started, I finished. They said that I'm black, bitch, I'm engine. Fuck your Thanksgiving. Shoot at these races for Christmas. I ain't got no time for no limits. Bitch, I see murder, I'm there for my niggas. Master the fusion, no just on the pictures. Came back for my pyramids, free my Egyptians. Disrespect my cook, they ass in a pot. Starting out set, conjure up, I'm in rhyme. Know that they know they act like they forgot. Bitch, we ain't slaves for the children of y'all. Fuck come together, they think that they better. They took out your cheddar, put rats in your camp. Erase your maps, infiltrate snaps. That's how long they been here, act like they can't count. Run them out the block like Freddie Haynes. Out Cliff America. Run them out the block like Freddie Haynes. Out Cliff America. Run them out the block like Freddie Haynes. Out Cliff America. Run them out the block like Freddie Haynes. Push to the limit, we rip off the fence. If you ain't my brother, then I ain't gon' spend it. so defenseless. Ain't nothing personal, bitch, it's just business. The blueberries got shooting habits. Being black is dope, police are super addicts. We get blamed for crimes, can't avoid the lashes. Passing prayers, never make it past them. They made you black and left you stuck with it. No kumbaya, nigga, fuck forgiveness. Don't forget oppression, don't forget the lynching. Still have to pop like the way in prison. So who the fuck want the smoky smoke? Like cigarettes, I open up and throw. Niggas can't be falling for the okie doke. Every time we rise, they try to give us dope. Run them out the block like Freddie Haynes. Oak Cliff America. Run them out the block like Freddie Haynes. Oak Cliff America. Run them out the block like Freddie Haynes. Oak Cliff America. Run them out the block like Freddie Haynes. Infamous Trail Lee. Triple D Tech. Bro, you ain't scared about the shit you be talking about?
This country has never cared about black people. That's right. They don't give two damns about us. And all of us always turn around worrying about what's good for America, what's good later for America, what's good for black people.
I know what they're going to say, not guilty, because no one saw them pull the trigger. I'm tired of that. Don't bow down anymore. Hold your heads up. We want our freedom now. I don't want to have to go to another war. Tired of children. Tired of it. That's enough.
We must also realize that the problems of racial injustice and economic injustice cannot be solved without a radical redistribution of political and economic.
If you can't do for yourself what the white man is doing for himself, don't say you're equal with the white man. That's right. If you can't set up a factory like he sets up a factory, don't talk that old equality talk.
Depression, repression, yeah, they are hunger and poverty, stricken everywhere. So much killing, stealing, and dying going on. The man started saying, I ain't did no wrong, taking out the leader. Take away my livelihood. All this killing and misgiving. When is it going to end?
With charisma was a target of the government COINTELPRO program. And that's stated in their own objectives of the program.
Who are you? You don't know. Don't tell me Negro, that's nothing. What were you before the white man named you a Negro? And where were you? And what did you have? What was yours? What language did you speak? Or Bunch or Powell, that wasn't your name. They don't have those kind of names where you and I came from. No, what was your name? And why don't you now know what your name was then? Where did it go? Where did you lose? Took it. And how did he take it? What tongue did you speak? Did the man take your tongue? Where is your history? How did the man, what did the man do to make you as dumb as you are right now? To kill the brother because he had began to take meaningful steps towards gaining the freedom for his people. He was taking steps to internationalize the black man's struggle and to take it to the United Nations.
to take it to the other countries around the world so that meaningful pressure could be brought to bear on the United States government and to force them to let his people go.
We can't prove for sure that the FBI COINTELPRO program or an agent of the FBI actually killed Malcolm X. They were certainly trying to reach that end. They were articulating that goal, and they were taking steps in furtherance of that, trying to cause that exact same thing to happen, which happened. So we can step back from it and say, regardless of their success, whether they were the ones who pulled the trigger, this gives us an idea of what their intent was, what they were willing to do, what their political viewpoint was, and what ends and what unconstitutional and violent ends they were willing to adopt and use in order to reach their goal, which was to destroy progressive movements.
Today I want to say to the people of America and the nations of the world, that we are not enough trouble. Racism can stop us. Yes, sir. The burning of our churches will not deter us. The bombing of our homes swayed us. Yes, sir. The beating and killing of our clergymen and young people will not divert us. Yes, sir. The wrath release on murderers will not discourage us. We're on the move now. Yes, sir.
So again, we cannot say for sure that James Earl Ray was working for the FBI. What we can say for sure is that the FBI had an intent shown by their programs against Dr. King, showed by the document I talked about preventing the rise of messiahs like Dr. King, that they wanted that to happen, and that they had again taken very active steps to do that. So then when Dr. King is killed a month after this one comes out, and after all of the attempts to get him to discredit him and to disrupt his organization, and in fact to have him do physical violence to himself and have others do physical violence to him, I mean, it becomes almost irrelevant whether they pulled the trigger or not, because we know that they did pull the trigger on Fred Hampton.
We have to defend ourselves. We intend to defend ourselves. We've did so in the past. We're going to do it today and the day after that and the day after that, because only through this proper example of the self-defense and the proper example of retaliation, and by letting these people know that we move from some basic laws, that anything that goes down on the oppressed people on the part of the oppressor, it should be reciprocal. Plain Politan workers' language, it takes two to tango. As soon as these motherfuckers go, we go.
Fred Hampton was only 20 years old, but he had the ability to really move people, to speak in a way that got people going, that effectively seemed to energize them.
He was beginning to develop a following, throughout the country, and he was a direct threat to the power structure.
I think that when he
Let me see if I can try to clear this up real quick. Try to clear this up real quick. We got 59 people in the building. What's going on, gang? What's going on? Y'all ready for this pay-per-view tonight? I got some straight fucking heat for you niggas tonight. I'm telling you. I got straight motherfucking drop. You only need a little bit of this. You ain't gonna need a whole lot of it of this because it's potent. I'm about to drop some fentanyl tonight, niggas. Make sure you have a family member around to catch you. You know, say if you touch it. They say if you touch it, you could go away from here. No, that ain't what it's all about. Not a coincidence. Stop the cap. Stop the cap. Pan-Africanism is a religion just like Judaism, all the other isms. Goddamn Islamism, Abrahamism, Christianity, Christendom. Yeah, nigga. That's a religion, nigga. That's a religion. Y'all believe a certain ideology, just like any other religion. You know how people believe in Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You believe in Marcus Garvey. Paul Cuffey, and Frederick Douglass. Yeah, Marcus Garvey, Frederick Douglass, and one of the Paul Cuffeys. Yeah. And y'all get these books. Y'all get all these little, books and messages and memoirs from everywhere, and then y'all try to put it all together into some Pan-African Bible. I don't know why y'all ain't even created that yet. What's up with where's the Pan-Africanist Bible at? Yeah, that's Pan-Africanism is based off belief. The belief that all black people is African. Press 1. That's how it's a religion. That was make the religion right there. Pan-Africanists are motherfucking preachers. That's all they is, goddamn it. Preachers and missionaries for their religion. That's all it is, not a coincidence. I hate to tell you, you're a part of a cult, gang. You a part of a cult. I'm sorry to tell you. All Pan-Africans agree, right, that all black people came from Africa. That's what make it a religion, Nick. That's an ideology. That's just like we say, if we was to say all black people come from the Americas, and then we get a bunch of black people from the Americas to believe that, start moving and practicing customs and traditions that honor that, it'll become a religion, gang. It's a religion. You are a part of a cult, not a coincidence. It's okay. A lot of people, they be part of cults and they don't be knowing they are part of a cult, gang. It's all right, gang. It's okay. So if it's only based on unifying, then what would be the term? Why did they use the term African? Why didn't they use the term pan-Negroist? Because that was the term they was using back then. They wasn't calling them Africans, they was calling them Negroes. So why wasn't they called pan-Negroists? Oh, okay. All right. Well, if you want to come express your sentiments, I'm sure you got an article or two to prove your point, but I don't think you want this smoke. This is an easy dub, not a coincidence. This is an easy dub, gang. This is an easy dub. Don't do it to yourself. Pray you be at work this morning, niggas. Pray you at work this morning, niggas.
He needs some milk.
Pray you at work today, nigga. Pray you at work. Shout out to my sister PG. I'm so glad I seen you, sister. Let me go ahead and text you right now, because I went to sleep thinking, damn, I ain't even hit my sister up. I went to sleep. Damn, I ain't even hit my sister up. I'm tweaking. I just texted to you, sister. You got the same number? If you got the same number, I just sent you a ticket. I'm about to put a poll up. Is Pan-Africanism the latest religion for black folk? Like what? The new Christianity. Hold on, let me see. How we gonna word this thing here, man? How we gonna word this thing here? Let's see. How we gonna word this thing? Damn, oh, that's why it's fucking up, because I'm in too many places at one time. My bad, gang. I ain't even realize it. Is Pan-Africanism the new Christianity? The latest iteration? That's what we want to know. Look, that nigga, not a coincidence, got quiet. Not coincidence. Don't say nothing too loud, nigga. I'll put your goddamn mouth in my goddamn pockets. Cat got your tongue? I could pull up probably like 3 things and prove that Pan-Africanism is a religion based off its behaviors. Let's see, hold on. Let's see if we can. Let's get a poll up real quick. Let's get a poll up. Oh, we on right on the top of the hour too. Hey man, it's that time, gang. Today is the day. Today is the day, gang. How many of y'all got your tickets? I see a few people got their tickets. We're gonna do some giveaways today. Some point. Probably do it at the pregame. We'll probably do everything at the pregame. I probably will be, making my little media run at least a little bit, little something. Little something. Little something. Hold on. Let me get something real quick. Okay, cool. Yeah, we got a lot of shit to give away too, man. I don't know if we're gonna be able to give away everything in the time period that we got. That is your come on, not a coincidence. Don't act like that, nigga. You doing a lot of goddamn doing a lot of that goddamn wolf.
Starts off like a small town marriage, lovely wife and life, baby carriage. Now all the stars have cars, success of course, but it ends in Hollywood divorce.
And I'm a star, yeah, and I don't have to go to Hollywood, cause Hollywood come through my neighborhood with cameras on. I really think they stealing from us like a sample song. I really wish one day we take it back like Hammer's home. The hurricane come and took my Louisiana home, and all I got in return was a darn country song. This old country wrong. Oh, but you're right if you just put a little ice on and cut your mic on, but you don't even write songs. But Hollywood make you spit like a python. I make Cobra, I'm so not sober, I'm high like a Hollywood. Coffee or soda, you can call me a roller. Hold up, your grill's glistening. Spent $100,000 on mine to feel different. What's the real sense of it? Bling bling, I know. And did you know I'm the creator of the term? I just straighten the perm. They let it sit too long. They just making it burn. Make a movie of our lifestyle, but they earn like a dead body burned on the mantelpiece. That's why I try not to lie on wax like it's candle grease. And I be the little nigga, cooler than antifreeze. Defrost on your window pane. Lil Wayne, but in Hollywood it's Little Wayne. Don't make me numb, so that's why I got a pre-numb. I do.
Starts off like a small town marriage, lovely wife and life, baby carriage. Now all the stars have cars, success of course, but it ends in Hollywood divorce. Hollywood divorce.
A is for Adamsville, B is for born home. See if I give a fuck, if you like me, you know I don't. If she ain't got a good head on her, leave that hoe alone. If she do got some good head on her, let her sing a song. D is for what I serve, I don't be on no curb. She ain't no junkie neither, I ain't no dope dealer, but she keep coming back. 3 stacks, must be some crack. Put that pipe in her lap, she ain't know how to act. Now that I've got your undivided attention, I'm gonna say this and run, under condition 1. Promise me you gon' stack, promise me you gon' ball, promise me you'll invest 3/4 of it all. For what? So your kids can have some cheese. Can't get with it, get on your knees, cause wealth is the word. Riches round the corner from the curb. Don't like what I write, shoot me a bird.
10th grade, the way was paid for me and Dre to create. Like Dr. Frankenstein, the arts and crafts. Now could we make a difference? Antoine Patton and Andre Benjamin jamming for you crabbing rap niggas and journalists that's quick to misprint public and private business, then retract back for deaf ears and think it's dismissed. Part 2, the sequel, all new cast. Just ain't the same gang of nerds on the internet slandering your name behind that screen name. They're lame and their life is pretty plain. M&M's with no nuts won't show up face to face. Straight bitch made like puppies on the nipples of a mutt. Address it on a case by case basis like the judge. What about the lying asshole trying to plot? Or these niggas on the block who want the queen? Nigga, please. But even she can walk, we'll miss her. We ain't gon' fake it, but God don't make mistakes. Must be something bigger waiting.
Starts off like a small town marriage, lovely wife and life, baby carriage. Now all the stars have cars, success of course, but it ends in Hollywood divorce. Hollywood divorce.
I do love you, but you hate me at the same time. Lights, camera, action, it's game time. Do you take this here as your lovely wife? To love her and cherish her for all your life? I solemnly swear to dare share and take you there. And me and you together, baby, we a lucky pair. It's been a long time, we walk a thin line. Others say they got you, but you been mine. As I sit back and watch all the cat fights, domestic violence, is that right? But you love the dog, gave me the spotlight. And now I'm going up, showing up, blowing up. I never ever thought that we were separated all. But you played me like a game of football. Used to feed me, need me, dress me. Now it's so messy, straight cut out and left me.
Hollywood divorce. All the fresh styles always start off as a good little hood thing. Look at blues, rock, jazz, rap. Not even talking about music, everything else too. By the time it reach Hollywood, it's over. But it's cool. We just keep it going, make new shit.
Take our game, take our name, give us a little fame, and then they kick us to the curb. That's a cold thing.
All right. Mic check. Is my shit blasting? Not a coincidence. I don't know if you missed that. Link right there. You didn't confirm or deny if you wanted that smoke. You don't want no problems. I get it. I understand, gang, gang. I get it. I wouldn't want no smoke neither. I wouldn't want no smoke neither.
He said that people learn basically by observation and participation. I think that everybody caught on to that. So what we say very simply is that if they learn by observation and participation, then we need to do more acting than we need to do writing. And I think the Black Panther Party is doing that. That we didn't talk about a breakfast with children program, we've got one. We're not going to tell you how many kids we intend to feed. We're feeding 3,000 to 4,000 already, and I don't know how many all around the country. We're not talking about beginning to think about treating people free when they need medical services. We're opening a free health clinic in the city of Chicago in less than 3 weeks. These are the type of examples that people can relate to.
The immediate criminal occupants in shooting at police officers emphasizes the extreme viciousness of the Black Panther Party. So does their refusal to cease firing at the police officers when urged to do so several times.
Ed Hanrahan, who was the political heir apparent of Mayor Daley, wanted to take credit for having killed this Black Panther leader. So he went on television, and he went on television explaining how Fred Hampton had come out of his bedroom firing a pistol, and how all the Panthers inside had repeatedly broken ceasefires and repeatedly fired at the police. The problem is when you fire a bullet, two things happen. You have a shell that comes from your gun, and you have a bullet that comes out the other end. When the evidence was all gathered, it turned out that all the shells that were in the apartment came from police weapons, with the possible exception of one. All the bullet holes, the directions of those bullet holes were all coming inside from outside. That is, showed that they were fired by the police. So that all of the evidence that Hanrahan said, all the evidence that was gathered proved that it was the police who fired, not the Panthers. Hanrahan went even further and actually pointed to places on the back door, which he said were evidence in pictures that the Panthers fired. The press themselves, when they looked closely at these pictures and returned to the scene, discovered that these were in fact nail heads and weren't bullet holes at all. The federal government at first appeared to be coming to do a neutral investigation. And what the federal government did find, of course, was that it was the police and not the Panthers who had fired. Well, under their cover, though, the federal government, under the cover of appearing neutral, the federal government hid their own role, which was that it was their informant who had gotten a floor plan of the apartment, and their informant had given their floor plan to Ed Hanrahan's raiders.
I was supposed to be one of the murdered Panthers, okay? However, my plans changed that evening, and the informant, O'Neill, was unaware of the change in plans that I had made. So my plans had changed, and I was not in the apartment. Or I was in the apartment earlier, but I left the apartment. And so I wasn't there. So they went to plan 2 in order to get rid of me. They raided my apartment the next morning on December 5th, shot my door down, and they thought that I was in the apartment.
There had been a systematic effort by the FBI in Chicago and nationally to destroy the Panthers. Previously, the FBI in Chicago had sent a letter to the head of the El Rukns, Jeff Fort, telling him the Panthers were trying to assassinate him. Didn't he want to take some action to prevent that? They had literally attempted to provoke things between the Panthers and other groups and attempted to discredit the Panthers publicly.
They didn't have to kill every leader. All they had to do was kill one of the most important and up-and-coming and messianic leaders who was doing what Fred Hampton was doing, to send the message to all those young folks, whether they be black or white or Latin or whatever, who wanted to get involved in the struggle, that these are, this is the game that you're getting involved in. We'll kill you in your bed.
I think during different periods, the government uses different tactics, and sometimes their methods will be to jail people. We saw that sometimes with regard to the Wobblies, they actually did kill people. We saw with regard to the Communist Party, they frequently would jail people or attempt to ruin their reputations. I think with regard to the black movement in particular, the escalation of the government's attacks was very clear. And I think assassination, setting people up for internecine rivalries, which could lead to deaths. I think the government has shown a willingness to use any form of violence that it felt was necessary.
What are we waiting for? The love freedom cause. And we've got to win. Repression in the air. Repression everywhere. Repression in the air.
The FBI itself, its structure, was one which was never, of course, happy with the struggle. The fact that Martin Luther King phones were tapped and the problems that J. Edgar Hoover gave him was clear. We only put King out. We expected it from us in SNCC, but certainly King was not a flaming revolutionary calling for the destruction of America. He was a reformist, trying to, in fact, improve America and was good for the image of America.
Within the FBI, who viewed itself as the vanguard of fighting, communism and so forth, they were always afraid that civil rights and the thrust for voting rights and so forth was, quote, a communist plot.
You take Martin Luther King, that is being led by communists all over this great country, feels that he has the key to the White House. He has the telephone call to the White House that can get anything he wanted.
I spoke for the white people. The white people rallied behind it, and we kicked the living hell out of the niggers, sent the out-of-town niggers to the hospital and out of the state, put back to their own hometowns where they ought to have been, and the niggers in St. Augustine got quiet and went back over nigger town where they belong.
Our feeling was that the FBI agent from the South was indistinguishable from his community.
The FBI had to work with the local law enforcements. That was their task. So it was clear here, first of all, they have comradeship from being in the same type of job, law enforcement agencies, and they were comrades from being in the South there together, not having too much work, joking together, and probably had social life together. And since the local police were the enemies, were our enemies, and the FBI was supposed to be our allies, it meant an automatic split between them, which never occurred.
Well, I've just gotten through a couple of weeks ago with a 45 or 46-day battle of Ingram Park, I call it. That's the park there in Birmingham where we stopped Martin Luther King. And I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we had that nigger whipped.
FBI in the South, rather than stopping Klan violence, would in fact allow it to happen.
Mr. Schwartz. But that was the problem with the Birmingham Police Department. What about the FBI? Did you ever discuss with them why they didn't do anything? Mr. Rowe. Yes, sir. I was told by the FBI. They said, well, who the hell are we going to report it to? The police department was involved in it. The police department helped set it up. We are an investigating agency, not an enforcement agency. All we do is gather information. This was Mr. Schwartz. Mr. Rowe, were you an informant in the Klan? Mr. Rowe. Yes, I was. Schwartz. From when to when? Rowe. From approximately 1959 to 1965. Schwartz. In 1965, did you surface in connection with a murder case? Rowe. Yes, I did. Schwartz. Whose murder and what role did you play in that case? Rowe. I was in the automobile the evening that Mrs. Viola Luiso was killed by a Klansman.
at the high point of FBI involvement with the Klan, 1 out of 4 Klansmen was an FBI agent. So a lot, if not all of that, of Ku Klux Klan policy and actions were being directed by or acquiesced in by the FBI. And this led to the FBI and its COINTELPRO program and its other racially oriented programs actually being implicated in and instigating crimes, civil rights crimes, murders, and such things. The Birmingham church bombing, the assassination of the civil rights workers, the Freedom Riders, Viola Luiso, for one, the people in Philadelphia, Mississippi. That Roe was involved in all of this, and he was an FBI informant. He's the one who pulled the trigger, or at least fired a shot in one of the incidents. He was involved in the bombing, and again, connected to the FBI.
Hoover always felt that civil rights was a threat to the country. So not threat to the country. I don't believe he was a threat to the social order, to the order of things. And therefore, as the protector of not only, quote, the country, which he didn't believe that we were part of, but the order of things which he knew we weren't a part of, anything that threatened the order of things, he had a right to use tactics to destroy it.
There was an explanation for why our housing was bad, our education was poor, our political power was limited, and that explanation was that we were held as colonial subjects within the United States. It's not a perfect explanation. It's an analogy to situations in Africa and in Asia that we could see that fit us. Therefore, colonialism had been denounced by the United Nations, and people were entitled to their independence, and they were justified in breaking out of that type of control. That was the basic American.
Police in our community couldn't possibly be there to protect our property because we own no property. They couldn't possibly be there to see that we receive the due process of law for the simple reason that the police themselves deny us the due process of law. And so it's very apparent that the police are only in our community, not for our security, but the security of the business owners in the community, and also to see that the status quo is kept intact.
No, hey! See that? You see that's what caused it. See that? That's about a 13-year-old kid. You see that? What are you standing here for? We are the white man!
Police brutality remains as a major issue in the Black community, and I'm sure in cities across the country. And probably will remain, because if you just examine what the police department is, it is the military arm of the establishment. So what do you expect of it? Of the establishment. So what do you expect of it? You expect to protect the interests of the establishment.
Talk about law and order. The very law and order that you talk about oppresses us. So therefore, we are for the extermination of that law and order. And you have shown us clearly that we can only do it by being armed.
The existentialist philosophers talk about the executioner-victim relationship that is always prevalent in most of the world today, especially the non-white world, where they're fighting for their liberation. And he says there are executioners and there are victims. The executioners are self-imposed. The victims begin to fight and agitate for their liberation. They use all type of means to get their liberation. The revolutionary philosopher Frantz Fanon says that what happens is that the victim begins to agitate. He uses all types of means against his executioner in fighting for a position of equality. After he tries a number of means and they do not work, he then begins to imitate
the means by which his executioner kept him down. That is usually through force and violence. He says, and then they begin to use it against them, breaking the one taboo that they've never been able to break, back against their executioners, so that you ought not to be upset. If we are violent, the United States taught us very well how to be violent.
4 days of rioting, looting, and arson rocked the city of Detroit in the worst outbreak of urban racial violence this year. Entire blocks of homes become infernos. At least 36 are killed, more than 2,000 injured, and damage topped the $500 million mark. Governor Romney declares a state of emergency, requests federal troops and 5,000 paratroopers reinforce the National Guard, state and city police. The city's industry and business are severely affected, and a tight curfew is ordered in the Motor Center. A besieged city of guerrilla warfare. Sniper groups use day and night hit-and-run tactics before tanks move in to curb their window and rooftop barrage. Wreckage is everywhere. Civil rights leaders make a joint condemnation of the violence and call for an end to the rioting. President Johnson, using firm words, urges the nation's citizens to support the maintenance of law and order.
I know that the majority of Negroes and whites are shocked and are outraged by them. Pillage, looting, murder, and arson have nothing to do with civil rights. They are criminal conduct. Your president calls upon all of our people in all of our cities to join in a determined program to maintain law and order, to condemn and to combat lawlessness in all of its forms, and firmly to show by word and by deed that riots, looting, and public disorder will just not be tolerated.
When they take care of the reasons, not only will they eliminate this one, but all others that will come about.
I don't think it's over. I think it lasts until people understand what's going on. A lot of people, see, I know a lot of friends, but I know it's gonna be tonight, gonna be tomorrow night, and they're gonna, it's gonna be until people straighten this up. I remember the first happened.
When black people began to rebel, and you'd call it riots, we understand that those are not riots, those are rebellions. People are rebelling because of conditions and not because of individuals. No individual creates a rebellion. It's created out of the conditions. And those rebellions will continue. And it's not a long, hot summer. That's white journalistic sensationalism. There's no such thing as a long, hot summer. I know some places around that, snow won't even touch the ground.
Black power is a consequence of the white backlash. Riots are consequences of the white backlash rather than a cause from it.
If they're trying to present themselves as a democratic nation, as a free nation, trying to get Africans under their wing, and Africans in America are under revolt and they're crushing them, it will cause too many problems. But Edgar Hoover was not a fool. He understood his job. He had to crush this movement. That's why COINTELPRO was not only instituted, was also quiet. Because this one could not get out because it was aimed really just at us.
He was prepared to try to destroy anything he saw as disruptive to the social order of things. That he saw, in the early days, the mob as, the image of the G-men against the mob and so forth. And then later in terms of counterintelligence against foreign. And now in the 60s, something that He didn't understand the thing, the civil rights movement disrupting the social order of things. You use the same kind of tactics that you use against the mob and the people, foreign agents, as to citizens of the United States that were trying to get, their civil rights and their civil liberties, because they were all threats to the social order. And therefore, COINTELPRO came into being, and he thought he had basically God on his side.
Black power means dignity. It means we're going to walk side by side with you or through you. We're going to be with dignity and integrity. We don't want any more than you have, and we're not going to accept any less than you have.
We will define black power. He will listen and recognize it. That's all. That's all.
We are now moving from a mere civil rights movement into a movement to gain political power to help deliver on the promises of civil rights. And the combination of the two words, black and power, was a little bit too much for white America to handle. What you have is with the Black Power movement,
All right. Give me a second, gang. Give me a second. We got 67 people in the building. I appreciate it if y'all hit that. Share the video out for me. Let me switch it up real quick. How y'all feeling this grand rising? How y'all feeling this grand rising? Let me drop the link real quick, see if y'all want to come through. All right. Hey, if we get, let's say, we get 100 people in here, we'll do a giveaway. How about that? We get 100 people in here, we'll do a giveaway. Only way we're gonna be able to do that is if y'all like the video, share the video out, bang the like button. Also, if you haven't hit the notification bell for this channel, you might want to go hit the notification bell so that you can get all the latest content coming from this platform.
Hoover was an icon.
As head of FBI, J. Edgar Hoover knew what everyone else wanted to keep hidden.
Hoover recognized information as power, which is why he maintained secret files.
Files so scandalous, all of Washington feared him.
He claimed he had secrets on politicians and secrets on other public officials, and he used that as a weapon.
But in a desperate game of secrets and lies, J. Edgar Hoover was both hunter and hunted.
He thought he was untouchable, that no one could dare touch him. But he was wrong.
Behind the public persona, his shocking private life nearly brought him down.
He had two major problems. One, he was addicted to gambling. And two, he was a blatant homosexual.
Next on Undercover History, delve into the secrets of J. Edgar Hoover.
The pink triangle, boy. Pink triangle gang. What's up? What up with it, Sister Bethy? What's up with it, Real Autonomous Defense League? What's up, gang? Goddamn pink triangle, gang.
J. Edgar Hoover was one of the giants. He personified integrity. He personified honor. He personified courage. He personified loyalty.
In May 1972, he was found dead on the floor of his bedroom at his home in Washington.
The greatness of Edgar Hoover will remain inseparable from the greatness of the organization he created and gave his whole life to building.
When the undertakers arrived, they found the house crawling with unidentified men in suits who were searching the house from top to bottom.
This is an end of an era.
The administration was terrified as to what secrets Hoover might have squirreled away on them.
J. Edgar Hoover empire within the U.S. government, an empire built on information. For close to 50 years, Hoover remained larger than life, more famous than movie stars, more powerful, perhaps, than presidents. Hoover was a man who'd done dark secrets and harbored many of his own. Now, decades after his death, with the help of Hoover's now public confidential files, historians and crime investigators are piecing together the secret life of the father of modern FBI. In the 20s and 30s, waves of crime shocked the nation. The Great Depression spawned the murderous crime sprees of colorful but ruthless gangsters like John Dillinger.
Dillinger was a bank robber. He had some panache. He had some flair. He'd jump the counter and doff his hat to the teller as he's robbing the bank. He caught the public's imagination to some extent.
This desperate public enemy now rises to fame as an underworld hero. And that set the wheels of justice grinding with a vengeance. 500,000 of these wanted notices went far and wide.
Bandits like Dillinger, Machine Gun Kelly, and Babyface Nelson shot their way through small towns across the country, and local police were helpless to stop them. The only federal law enforcement agency was a tiny bureau inside the Department of Justice.
It was a political job. If you knew Congressman so-and-so, you can get a job there. If you knew Senator so-and-so, you can get a job there. When the FBI was first formed, it was a federal investigative agency with no powers of arrest or anything like that.
Not only was it powerless, it had a terrible reputation.
There was a series of scandals involving the Bureau that occurred during the World War I and the post-war years. And there was a real serious question about the character of agents themselves.
The popular image was sometimes of either the corrupt prohibition agent or the Keystone Cops.
Facing criticism over the disgraced Bureau, the Attorney General fired the director in 1924. In his place, he promoted an ambitious young Washingtonian named John Edgar Hoover.
Hoover used every influence he had in Washington to get the job. He was put in as an acting director at first, and he proved himself in a very short period of time that he was the only man for the job.
Not yet 30 years old, Hoover's work was cut out for him.
So when Hoover came in, there was a house cleaning of the Bureau, but at the same time, he imposed these very strict rules because he sought to create the image of the agent as a gentleman, an individual above reproach. And the result of this is you have this very tightly controlled organization.
Within 10 years, Hoover and his modernized crime-fighting force had killed or captured the most wanted gangsters in the country, including public enemy number one, John Dillinger. The young FBI chief stepped into the spotlight. He was now a star. Replacing the anti-hero in the American imagination, a new con, Hoover's G-Man.
The G-Man at the scene of murder, an experimental case at the Crime Detection Laboratory.
The aim of the Bureau changed radically. The G-Man was someone who could fight with his fists and use his brain to solve criminal investigations. The Bureau was also equipped with a cutting-edge laboratory and identification records for all known criminals in the country. Hoover was using his new political clout to turn the FBI into the best law enforcement agency in the world.
Of course, was led by, at that point, the #1 cop in the land, J. Edgar Hoover.
But the new FBI didn't acquire its image by accident.
Hoover had a public relations staff which was bigger than any actor or actress has in Hollywood. Their job was to keep the FBI's name and Hoover's name in the newspapers every single day.
It was the Hoover Bureau of Investigation. He had a whole department called the Crime Records Division that really should have been named the Hoover Publicity Division.
If the ultimate goal was to improve the image of the FBI, the strategy was clear. The Bureau would be synonymous with one man, J. Edgar Hoover.
Well, he really controlled the press. I mean, the game in town and the game you play with the press is that you leak to them, and they are thereby indebted to you. And the press would not criticize Hoover.
And everybody believed J. Edgar, my God, J. Edgar Hoover, geez, he was like God.
May I emphasize that the Federal Bureau of Investigation is as close to you as your nearest telephone. It belongs to you. It seeks to be your protector in all matters within its jurisdiction.
When he first started the FBI and took over, he did a good job. He made it a good agency. It was highly respected and probably made it one of the best law enforcement agencies. But at that time, like everybody else in America, I was not aware of all his other activities that he had going.
Some of these activities began as the United States geared up for World War II. The President authorized Hoover's FBI to use wiretap and electronic surveillance in cases it deemed necessary for national security. This gave Hoover a license to get involved in surveillance and legal break, which the FBI called black bag jobs.
He was able to use the surveillance to his own ends, and this opened the way to a widespread abuse of civil liberties.
We refer to the Cold War era as the McCarthy era. I think that more properly, we could refer to it not as McCarthyism, but Hooverism. Bureau officials on their own decided who constituted a threat to the nation's security interests.
The result was a massive monitoring of American citizens. But Hoover's reach extended beyond spy hunting into the nation's bedrooms. Directing the FBI's investigatory powers against adulterers and homosexuals, Hoover began a crusade to defend moral virtue.
It was one of the things he was obsessed with, like communism. He came across as the conscience of the nation.
But it was a risky proposition for Hoover, who was himself the subject of open rumors about his own relationship with his #2 man at the FBI, Clyde Tolson. During a time when homosexuality was widely condemned, Hoover sought to project a morally upright public image.
The Bureau began in 1937 to collect information about homosexual activities.
Hoover is, of course, absolutely homophobic. He wanted to identify every homosexual in the United States.
In targeting homosexuals, Hoover authorized a secret program codenamed Sex Deviant.
And the purpose of this program was to identify individuals who are homosexuals who might be employed in the federal government.
Homosexuality was inside of the FBI's jurisdiction. It wasn't a federal crime, but Hoover argued that homosexuals posed a national security threat.
In the 1940s and 1950s, when America was especially concerned about the possibility of Soviet penetration, it was thought, and there was evidence to support the thought, that people who were homosexual would be more prone to being blackmailed by the Soviets into doing something.
For Hoover, if anyone seemed suspicious or was vulnerable to blackmail, it was the FBI's responsibility to investigate them. Advances in surveillance techniques would give Hoover even greater access into the personal lives of Hoover's friends and enemies, including the presidents under whom he served. Under J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI collected information on thousands of Americans. The secret files Hoover kept are the key to unlocking his power, but they remain wrapped in mystery. These files were kept separate from the FBI's central file system because of their sensitivity or because they contained information obtained illegally. When Hoover died in 1972, his personal secretary Helen Gandy began destroying the most sensitive files that Hoover had maintained for decades.
How much she knew about his very personal life, I don't know. She was his secretary for 40-some years, and he never once called her Helen. It was always Miss Gandy.
She'd been with him almost from the start, and she was fiercely protective of the director. And on that day, knowing that the files were no longer in Hoover's possession, she must have had a terrible quandary about what to do about them.
Nobody knows how many files Gandy destroyed or what precisely they contained. That allows conspiracy theorists to imagine the worst.
What survived was to lead those who examined the papers years later to conclude that the dirt in Hoover's private files was like looking into a sewer.
For its part, the FBI has denied that Hoover kept secret files on powerful Americans in order to blackmail them.
Miss Gandy said that these were things like correspondence with friends and business stuff and that sort of thing. It certainly wasn't the dirt files on the entire Congress and all the major political figures in Washington that, people kind of envision when they think of Hoover's secret files.
But historians and investigators who've studied the agency's records say there was much more to Hoover's secret files than Helen Gandy admitted.
These were non-record records, that is to say that they were not indexed and serialized into a record system, and thus theoretically did not exist. It allowed the FBI director to deny that the FBI was not doing what in fact it was doing.
We may not know everything that Hoover kept in the secret files, but we know a lot about how FBI agents gathered the information inside the files. Bill Turner was an FBI agent under Hoover in the 1950s and was trained in illegal surveillance.
I was selected in 1958 to go to the FBI sound school. The sound school was illegal. It was a program designed to teach the art and craft of bugging, tapping, and burglaries. Who did illegal bugging and tapping because it was a shortcut? a shortcut to get information he couldn't get otherwise.
Turner participated in these so-called black bag jobs.
I remember we'd go in the afternoon, say, to this local secretary of the Communist Party USA's house while they were at work and take a document camera and document the membership lists of the party. Of course, we couldn't use that in court of law because it was illegally obtained, but it steered us on to who was who in the party.
What happened over time is the evolution of a culture of lawlessness with the Bureau. That is, if you get away with it, you do it.
Hoover got away with it because nobody knew about it.
Nobody knew about it because the evidence gathered was stored in Hoover's secret files. Theo Harris has used the Freedom of Information Act to acquire over 17,000 pages of files that weren't destroyed after Hoover's death. They paint a fascinating picture of the director.
Hoover filed a lot about the FBI director. They tell us that he was a very sophisticated bureaucrat who understood power very well. They also tell us that while he projected an image of being very deferential, in some cases very obsequious in a relationship with presidents, that he was his own man, pursued his own agenda.
Hoover's agenda was always centered on advancing the power of the FBI and maintaining his own grip on the agency. But that agenda was not always in line with the presidents he served.
Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans.
In 1960, 65-year-old J. Edgar Hoover was nearing the mandatory age of retirement as 43-year-old John F. Kennedy was elected. Hoover would now report to Kennedy's younger brother, Robert, the Attorney General.
Robert Kennedy sought to exercise his authority over the FBI director, an authority that had not been exercised since the 1940s, and Hoover was used to being his own boss, and all of a sudden there was this young whippersnapper who was essentially exercising his prerogative as Attorney General. So there was a very tense relationship between Robert Kennedy and J. Edgar Hoover.
Hoover had been running the FBI for 35 years, but now his future was uncertain. There were rumors that the Kennedys wanted to fire Hoover.
But the Kennedys couldn't fire him because Hoover knew the Kennedys' secrets.
When he heard that they were looking to get rid of him as far as director of the FBI, he simply went to John Kennedy, the president of the United States, in his office and said, you do this to me, and this is what I'm going to say about you.
Hoover had a lot to say about Kennedy, information the FBI had gleaned over many years, observing the playboy politician.
John F. Kennedy's affairs didn't sit well with him, both on a personal moral standpoint, but perhaps even more importantly on a security standpoint. It was something that could have compromised the president.
Hoover focused on an affair Kennedy had in 1942 when he was in the Navy. The woman was a gossip columnist named Inga Arvid.
The FBI's interest was on Arvid, allegedly because she was a German spy, but this is sort of really a far-out allegation they pursued. And as a result of this, they wiretapped her and they picked up a conversation between Arvid and John Kennedy, who was then stationed in Charleston, South Carolina.
Based on that conversation, the AI bugged the hotel room Kennedy and Arvid used for their liaison. In 1960, the Arvid investigation acquired a different dimension with Kennedy's nomination as the Democratic presidential candidate. Hoover transferred the Arvid folder to his official and confidential file.
So you have this earlier investigation that might not seem to have the value, but it had considerably greater value.
They not only knew that information, but they had the tape recordings of their sexual tries. And Kennedy spent his whole administration hoping to get those tapes back.
The treacherous dance between the young politician and the perennial FBI director continued throughout Kennedy's presidency. So, action on Kennedy with Judith Campbell Exner, girlfriend of a notorious Chicago mobster.
The FBI had wiretaps of this organized.
Consequently, the FBI intercepted a series of calls by Judith Campbell Exner to the White House.
Hoover walked into Bobby's office and laid down this report, this recalling the White House, and put through directly to the president each time. And then he just kind of left it there.
On March 22nd, 1992, Hoover met with the president to inform him about Judith Campbell Exner's shady background. Some believe Hoover was blackmailing the president, but according to the FBI, Hoover was simply warning Kennedy of a potential threat to national security.
I don't see Hoover being able to blackmail the president. To actually come out and say, Mr. President, I know this dirty thing about you, and if you don't do what I say, I'm going to make this public, it kind of boggles the mind.
Hoover had developed a reputation as a bully who would not hesitate to destroy lives and careers to get what he wanted. Above all, Hoover inspired fear.
Hoover had information on everybody, especially the politicians. This was his way of controlling everybody. He knew how to do that. He was an expert in that area.
His business to collect gossip. So no one wanted to fool with them because they were afraid an FBI investigation would begin and they would become exposed.
Hoover simply played upon their weaknesses, their skeletons in their closet.
They said he had a black book on everybody. Even when he went before the Congress, he would reach into his pocket, that little black book, and just beat it like that on the table. And boy, and once they saw that, he got everything he wanted.
Neither the Congress nor the executive called him to account. He claimed he had secrets on politicians, and he used that as a weapon. That is no different than a mafia boss, in my opinion.
The currency of Hoover's power was information. Private information that people wanted to keep hidden. But the FBI wasn't the only organization that knew how to exploit secrets. Hoover faced a powerful enemy and had secrets that, if known, could bring him down. While Hoover was building the FBI into the best law enforcement agency in the world, a violent criminal organization was rising to unprecedented heights of power and influence, the American Mafia. Only Hoover could stop it, but he chose not to.
It certainly was in his best interest not to go after certain people.
Bill Bonanno is the son of New York crime boss Joseph Bonanno, who ran one of the 5 major mafia families during the time that Hoover ran the FBI.
Hoover was on his own, doing his thing, trying to accumulate his own power. And it's very interesting to me that his history and the history of our world was really parallel tracks. They both were trying to accumulate power, and they were both trying to dispense that power.
Because Hoover understood power, he knew it would be difficult to take down the sophisticated crime network the Mafia had become.
But also he knew that there's a vast amount of corruption connected with organized crime. He knew exactly what was going on. And he didn't want his agents exposed to it.
The threat of corruption was only part of why Hoover turned a blind eye to the vast criminal empire that was spreading across the nation.
Gambling is a vicious evil. It corrupts our youth and blights the lives of our adults. It becomes a springboard for other crimes, embezzlement, robbery, and even murder.
In public hearings, Hoover took a strong stance against gambling. But it is possible that his private gambling habit tied him to the very crime bosses he should have been hunting down.
Horse racing at historic Pimlico track outside Baltimore. 11 3-year-olds entered in the Preakness Stakes. 30,000 turf devotees are out for the 78th Preakness. Among them, FBI Chiefs J. Edgar Hoover and
Horse racing had become a cash cow for notorious mobsters Frank Costello and Meyer Lansky, who had cornered the market on illegal bookmaking.
And they're off after fame and fortune.
The 30s and into the 40s and 50s, racing in this country was called the sport of kings. And people in my world, what public calls the mafia, developed a system called The Wire. It was a method for people all over the country to be able to bet on horse racing.
J. Edgar Hoover liked horse races, loved them. He would attend them as often as he could.
If he was in Florida, you want to find him, go to the racetrack. He's there. If he's in New York and you want to find him, go to the racetrack in New York, you'll find him. He was a devout gambler. I'm telling you, just like a sick person is an alcoholic. He was like that.
Hoover made no secret of his love for gambling, but he insisted that he never wagered more than $2 on a race.
But the favorite correlation is gaining ground.
Hoover, I don't think, ever bet $2 in his life other than for a photo op. He would go up to the $2 window at the racetrack and bet the $2 and turn around and smile for the camera.
Bill Bonanno remembers seeing Hoover at the track with Tolson.
Hoover had a problem. He was addicted to gambling.
Away from the cameras, Hoover bet much larger sums on races. Even FBI agents had suspicions that Hoover's gambling linked him to crime figures like Frank Costello.
Hoover would meet on a park bench in Central Park with Costello, and Costello would give him the fixed races, and he had agents place bets for him behind the counter when he was photographed at the $2 window. He knew via Costello which horse was destined to win.
Mr. Hoover enjoyed the benefits of betting on races that he knew. He didn't know he was going to win. He just knew that he was going to collect.
This is something that went on for years. So by looking after him at the track, he was beholden to the mobsters.
One fact gives credence to the theory that Hoover intentionally ignored the mafia threat. For decades, while the mob grew increasingly powerful, Hoover refused to acknowledge that a nationwide crime organization even existed.
From early in my career in the FBI, I knew that we didn't go against organized crime.
Hoover argued that going after the mafia was, for the most part, not within the FBI's jurisdiction. Costello was not the only one willing to curry Hoover's favor in exchange for lining his pockets. One of Hoover's closest friends was mob associate Clint Murchison, an oil magnate and owner of the Del Charro Hotel near the racetrack in Southern California.
Murchison cozied up to Hoover from the late 40s, and year after year, Hoover would go on his long summer vacations to the Del Charro a resort that Murchison had established in California. There he would stay. There he would not pay the bill.
Clint Murchison undoubtedly believed that he was being protected by the Hoover from investigation. So it was a quid pro quo. Hoover was comped at the Del Cerro. Murchison was free to skirt the law.
In order to keep Mr. Hoover happy, it's my understanding that Clint would put him in on deal, oil in Oklahoma and in Texas. And if the oil well came in, Hoover would get his share. If the oil well didn't come in, didn't cost him anything.
He had a lot of oil stock, and that's never been satisfactorily explained. But there was a great deal of freeloading that was going on in the top echelons of the Bureau.
Essentially, a group of very senior officials of the FBI who were helping themselves and lining their own pockets with goods and services provided either privately or with taxpayer funds.
John Dowd was in charge of an investigation into the corruption at the FBI during Hoover's tenure.
Mr. Hoover's personal behavior was appalling. I mean, he never paid for a meal. He had his house totally refurbished at taxpayers' expense every year. I mean, that is utter corruption. That is complete fraud. So he was committing crimes against people of the United States, against the taxpayers of the United States.
Hoover is really the epitome of the old saying about power corrupts. If you can get away with a little and you get away with it long enough, then you get away with more. You realize that you can, and you do.
Deception, fraud, gambling, the J. Edgar Hoover that few Americans ever knew about during his lifetime. But Hoover might have gambled with even higher stakes when his secretive private life put his entire reputation on the line.
Fixing the races for him and for looking after Hoover at the track, the mob had something on Hoover, but almost certainly that wasn't the only thing they had on him.
Despite Hoover's celebrity, Americans knew little about the private man behind the public figure. A dark side of the FBI chief may have concealed secrets far more damaging his gambling and his associations with the mob. Behind the tough guy image, Hoover was no ladies' man.
From the late 30s, Hoover became involved with the man who was going to be his constant male companion for the whole of the rest of his life. This was Clyde Tolson.
Hoover and Tolson had known each other from the 1920s when Hoover hired Tolson at the FBI. He impressed Hoover very early on and rose rapidly in the Bureau.
Tolson became a man who was always at his side, both as a friend but also within the Bureau. He was the axe man, the hatchet man who would carry out Hoover's orders.
Until Hoover's death, the two traveled to work together most days. They would also go nearly every day to the Mayflower Hotel in downtown Washington to have lunch. The two men would always sit with their backs to the wall so that they could see anyone who might want to shoot them. Hoover and Tolson also took all their vacations together, usually to Florida or California. On these trips, The two friends took hundreds of photographs.
They photographed each other, and Hoover especially photographed Tolson. And there are pictures of Tolson asleep even. Men don't usually very often go around taking photographs of their friends asleep.
When we were asked as agents, say at a cocktail party, somebody would say, "Is your director a homosexual?" which was the word in those days. Our standard reply was, "Well, it's an unwholesome relationship."
You have two bachelors, two men never married, hanging out all the time together. Question arises, were they homosexual? And the answer is there's no way to know.
No way to know unless the witnesses
Two alleged heterosexual men, never married, no children, equals zesty. Always hanging out, going on vacations together, equals zesty. Yeah, big zest. Let me get some zest. Get some lemon zest. This is lemon zest right here. You know what I'm saying? So the person who is the moral high ground of all of humanity in America, he in that pink triangle. He in that pink triangle. Go figure, right? All the corruption, all the shit associated with it, with this individual. He's in that pink triangle. Yes, he is. He's in the pink triangle.
And never married, hanging out all the time together. Question arises, were they homosexual? And the answer is there's no way to know.
unless there were witnesses to their liaison. Hoover took pains to protect his privacy, but he also took risks. Risks like frequent nights out at New York's famous Stork Club.
I remember being at the Stork Club in New York. That was the gathering place. So just everybody who was anybody.
At the Stork Club, one would be elbow to elbow with the glamorous and the powerful of the day. But it was also a very dangerous place for J. Edgar Hoover. The club was run by a former bootlegger with close ties to the mob, and in particular Frank Costello, who was known as the Prime Minister of the Underworld. This is the same mobster who allegedly took Hoover's off-track bets. Hoover and Tolson may have put themselves at risk and were possibly even spied upon while they were at the Stork Club.
There is an interpretation out there that because members of the underworld, the mafia, own these various places, that they were places to gather information. There's no question in my mind that that was so.
It's now known that the club had two-way mirrors in the restroom so that people could be spied on, and that some of the tables had secret microphones that recorded the conversations. The Stork Club was particularly dangerous because of the mob involvement and because of Hoover's vulnerability so far as his homosexuality was concerned.
Hoover and Tolson may have let their guard down at the club. Several patrons recalled an unusual sight witnessed one New Year's Eve.
Supposedly where Hoover and Tolson were holding hands. That was the only time that I can ever remember that being said of them in public.
But one small unguarded moment would not provide the leverage the mafia needed to control Hoover.
Several mafia sources spoke over the years about the mob having had something to hold over Hoover. And 2 or 3 of them said that they actually had seen proof that Hoover was homosexual.
The proof was a set of photographs. Whether or not the photographs actually existed may never be known for sure, but they acquired a mythical status nonetheless.
The person that controlled the photographs was Meyer Lansky. I mean, where he got them, I don't know where he got them from, but he's the one.
They said the person who controlled it was who? Because we know this person is connected with rap and hip hop and the creation of that. Did we just hear that right? Real quick, we got a purchase of a ticket. We want to give a special shout out to Rob Fletch for sending in the purchase for the ticket. We appreciate you, gang. We're going to get that right over to you within 5 minutes, good sir. For everybody who don't know, today is the day. We got the pay-per-view coming through. Pull this up real quick. Me and the brother Truth Searcher will be going in tonight, 9 p.m. EST. I got a lot of shit to break down in a little bit of time, but we will be in the building, like I said, dropping that fentanyl. I'll show you niggas what you have been setting your people up for when telling them to go take a DNA test. Goddamn. Also, we got 80 people in the building. We just need about 20 more people. Get 20 more people. I have a few tickets sponsored. If I don't give them away this morning, I will give them away later on. We got a few sponsors that want to give away some tickets. Shout out to Beth's Best Auto, Coco Travels for sponsoring a ticket. Also, we got a hoodie to be given away, sponsored by the brother Truth. We got a digital black dollar shirt to be given away of your size. We got shoes. We got crypto cakes, cartel notebooks. We got dream catchers. I mean, we got it all. Okay? Like we got a bunch of shit to give away. As well as, like I said, some sponsored tickets as well. So if you haven't got your tickets, then motherfucking you might get a chance to win a giveaway. You know what I mean? Like I said, if we get 100 people in here, I will give away a ticket. We'll give this one away. Sponsored by Beth's Best Auto and Coco Travels. All right, let's continue.
One that controlled them.
They had photographs of him in a compromising position.
He's the
Status nonetheless.
The person that controlled the photographs was Meyer Lansky. I mean, where he got.
For sure, but they acquired a mythical status nonetheless.
The person that controlled the photographs was Meyer Lansky. I mean, where he got them, I don't know where he got them from, but he's the one that controlled them.
They had photographs of him in a compromising position with another male, okay? Now, I know that Lansky, according to my source, had at least 3, maybe 4 such photographs.
Crime investigator Gallinaro claims he saw one of the photographs during his pursuit. pursuit of mob associates in the 1970s.
I was shown one by my informant. I could identify Hoover, but I couldn't identify the male. Now, I know, people say, well, they got ways how they can darken these photographs. And they got a lot of ways they can do all right. Maybe so. I'm not an expert in photography, but I know this looks pretty good to me,
But there are far more shocking allegations. Allegations that, if true, reveal Hoover's reckless personal behavior. Hoover's friend Louis Rosenstiel allegedly invited his wife Susan to know. She told Hoover biographer Anthony Summers what happened next.
They wound up going to a suite at the Plaza Hotel in New York City. And amongst the people present was a man dressed up as a woman in a fluffy dress with flounces and lace stockings and high heels, whom she recognized as J. Edgar Hoover. And that evening, two young boys in their late teens were brought in and had a form of sex game with the director of the FBI dressed up in drag.
The photograph I saw him in drag, standing in the room with a wig on and a frilly black dress and fishnet stockings and high heels. And there was absolutely no mistake that it was our beloved Mr. Hoover.
Hoover's stories are fiction.
There are a lot of salacious stories about Hoover. Not surprisingly, most of those have come out after his death. The one about Hoover in a dress, I certainly would chalk up to urban legend. If the mob had pictures of him, Hoover's reputation would have been destroyed decades ago.
The value of the photograph and the strength of those photographs required that nobody ever really see them, but people could talk about them. And each person that would talk about it would add something in their imagination.
The question that nobody's been able to answer has been, what happened? Why did Hoover not crack down on the mafia when he could have done? And although it has to be to a degree speculation, I think the mob found out about his sexuality, and this was something they could hold over him for all the years that followed.
Blackmail may have been one of the reasons why Hoover denied the existence of the mafia for decades. But in 1957, an unexpected event would make it impossible for Hoover to continue averting his eyes from the mob. By the 1950s, the mafia in the United States had grown out of control.
It was clear to anybody who was serious about law enforcement that there was such a thing as the mafia, that it was a serious and increasing problem, a cancer in American society. Yet Hoover behaved as though it didn't exist.
And in November of 1957, tucked away from the eyes of the federal law enforcement, an unofficial convention took place in the town of Appalachian, New York. The heads of the mafia families from all around the country gathered at the home of Joseph Barbara. A local state trooper noticed an unusual number of cars on a small side road on the way to the private residence. He began to take down license plate numbers. And when people at the meeting realized that the police were taking an interest, many of them scattered.
Apparently, they all took off in every direction from the stories I heard. Some went to the woods, but 6 or 7 people who stayed in the house, they were the smart ones. And that raid became symbolic of the spotlight publicity on this thing the American people call the mafia in the United States.
J. Edgar Hoover, like everyone else, found out this mafia connection the next morning in the newspapers.
And it's very clear in the papers and everywhere else that there really was national collusion going on. You know, these folks weren't simply meeting to have a beer and roast some hot dogs.
Hoover could no longer deny the existence of organized crime after the tremendous publicity that was given to the Appalachian Conference.
It brought out to a lot of people. But as this went on and everyone knew about organized crime, and the FBI didn't, so there seemed to be something wrong with the FBI.
1957 was the year that J. Edgar Hoover had to sit back in that big sumptuous office of his and say, what the heck do I do now?
In response to Appalachian, Hoover set up the Top Hoodlum program, which required each FBI regional office to list their 10 most wanted gangsters.
Well, this was kind of ridiculous because in San Jose, California, there weren't 10 people involved. Yet in Chicago, you might have had 200. In New York, you might have had 1,000. You know, I mean, so it was just a safe face mechanism. It went no place. It never accomplished anything.
I think after Appalachian, people began to realize that Hoover wasn't what he had been built up to be.
That's why things became so desperate at the end of the 50s and into the 60s.
Feared for his bare-fisted tactics, dogged by rumors, and now facing criticism for his failure to battle organized crime, Hoover was in the fight of his life.
Hoover had become a fixture, a seemingly immovable fixture by the end. But then there were tremors suggesting that perhaps he wasn't so secure.
In the late 1960s, Hoover's grip on power began to slip as stories of illegal surveillance hit the presses.
I, Bill House Nixon, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States. So help me God.
Hoover needed a friend in the White House, and with the election of Richard Nixon, an old anti-communist ally from the 1950s, he thought he had one. But the new president would prove too lawless and unscrupulous, even for Hoover.
As the presidency progressed, there was pressure on Hoover to do more nefarious things, more bugging, more illegal surveillance, and so on. Hoover saw the problems coming for the presidency and, to protect his own backside, tried to distance himself.
Nixon wanted Hoover to keep performing the kind of illegal surveillance he had built his career on.
Nixon could not believe that Hoover was doing these things and not doing them for him.
So there was a debate within the Nixon White House about whether Hoover was unduly cautious and that the FBI was not conducting the kinds of investigations that the administration wanted.
People around Nixon persuaded Nixon finally that it was time to tell Hoover that he had to retire as director of the FBI.
From the White House perspective, Hoover was no longer an asset. After 46 years, maybe it was time for him to go. Hoover was invited to breakfast with the president, and people at the Justice Department were sitting and waiting for the announcement from the White House.
The announcements never came because Nixon, who was never courageous about firing people, had simply not dared to do it.
I can say so much that he is a man who has never served a party. He has always served his country, and he deserves credit for that.
Hoover died at home in May 1972 with Nixon still in office. Having served as the head of the FBI for nearly half a century, his power and influence were unmatched.
The fear of the files outlived Hoover, and Nixon was as worried as anyone about that. Some of the most secret material still unaccounted for. The blackmail material on a great number of people.
People still rightly remember that iconic Hoover of the 1930s and 1940s, you know, the gangbuster and the spy buster. And yet, these newer suspicions have been creeping in and coloring that reputation.
It's amazing to me how everybody's pounced on J. Edgar Hoover after 1972. And I often wonder where the hell they were before 1972.
It was just a gradual process of erosion. People began to think maybe the things that we've been told all these years about the Bureau being so infallible and so perfect aren't true.
What has emerged about Hoover's abuses of power, his attacks on civil liberties, and his pressures on politicians has tarnished his reputation. Yet years after his death, we still know very little about this deeply private man.
When Hoover died, Tolson was effectively the widow, publicly and indeed privately. Effectively the widow. Hoover died, Tolson was effectively the widow, publicly and indeed privately.
Hoover had named Tolson his executor, him the bulk of his estate.
And at the funeral of Hoover, it was a shattered Clyde Tolson who was handed the flag that had been on the director's coffin.
Many of J. Edgar Hoover's secrets followed him to the grave, but others, those contained in the surviving secret files, began to spill into the public room.
There's no doubt that had Hoover remained alive and you had these inquiries as well as a release of records, that Hoover would not have remained as FBI director. He would have been fired on the spot because there had been clear evidence of his abuses of power.
Obsessed with power and plagued with troubling secrets, J. Edgar Hoover was destined to live a double life. Crime fighter and mafia pawn. Spy catcher and blackmailer. American hero and American hypocrite. Hoover will be remembered as all of these, but it's not the way the most powerful director in the history of the FBI would have wanted it.
And now, my parting words, I give you the motto of the FBI's heritage: fidelity, bravery, integrity. May you cherish it as we do, and may you exemplify it as we have sought to do. I thank you.
You fucked up big time. You're incapable of running this shit. Sit your $5 ass down before I make change.
All right, gang. I'm out of this motherfucker. I'll see y'all later on today. For the pre-game of the pay-per-view. You enjoyed today's stream. Bang that like button one time. Share the video out. I'll see y'all on the next one. Y'all have a good rest of the day, gang. Peace.
A soldier.
Trey Ali in this bitch. Tom Don, real American. Original American. I'm from her, I ain't come here. Yeah. Say cop on my color, I die for my brothers, but I do not think that these hoes understand. Atlanta, Alabama, they burn down your channels through niggas and slammers, equality dead. Fuck it, I up, they came back from my virgin, the feather my colors, the crown with the feds. Watch how you classify when you be passing by, calling you black, it's like calling you dead. Y'all came to the land of the free and the home of the brave, but forgot that it's not where you stayed. Start having babies and switching your name around, land on the dies and you taking their place. Don't forget Democrats pushing your city back, casting your vote, put you in the grave. We write your history, filling with misery, lying, told everyone we was the slaves. Where your ancestors from? What name you took on? What boat did you bitches come on? If you had a sponsorship, you not a Thompson and see, but my people been here all along. Calling us African must be an accident. Claiming you American shit is just wrong. Clarification in case you mistaken. Sit back and remember the words to this song. Obama is not American. Rich McConnell is not American. You crackers is not American. Pan-African is not American. Remember there's two Americans. We the old, not the new Americans. Man, look how they do Americans. Black people, the true Americans. Sorry, not sorry.
I just end with this one thing. These four brothers sitting here, we didn't all come from Africa. And there was a country before 1492, and our history goes way beyond 1492. So you can't start us at 1492. We were always here. We were always here.